Okay, so you're matching the picture to the sentence. All right, go.
The students are doing a worksheet now that tells us how the pictures and the sentences go together. Let's do that now. If you have that worksheet, you can do it. If not, let's do this on the screen. I will show you a picture of one of the kinds of climate or geography on the screen. Then I will show you 3 different sentences. One of those is correct to go with this kind of climate or geography. The other 2 are not correct. So after each picture, when you see the sentence, pause the video and you write down the correct sentence to go with that picture. I will not give you the correct answer right away. When we have finished this, then we will join the class and look at their correct answers. So write down the correct sentence to go with that picture. Pause the video after each picture. Are you ready? Let's begin. 1. I live in an area that is very mountainous. 2. I live next to a very big forest. 3. I live in a place that gets a lot of snow. It gets very cold. Pause the video and write down the correct sentence to go with this picture. 1. I live in a place where there is sand everywhere, called a desert. 2. I live on top of a hill. 3. I live in a place that gets a lot of snow. It gets very cold. 1. I live in an area that is very mountainous. 2. I live in a place with no hills because everything is flat. 3. I live deep inside a jungle. 1. I live in a prairie where the grass grows in every direction. 2. I live in a place that gets a lot of sun. It is very hot. 3. I live next to a very big forest. 1. I live deep inside the jungle. 2. I live in a place where there is sand everywhere, called a desert. 3. I live on top of a hill. 1. I live in a place that gets a lot of snow. It gets very cold. 2. I live in a place that gets a lot of sun. It is very hot. 3. I live in a prairie where the grass grows in every direction. 1. I live deep inside the jungle. 2. I live in a place that gets a lot of snow. It gets very cold. 3. I live next to a very big forest. 1. I live in a place with no hills because everything is flat. 2. I live on top of a hill. 3. I live in an area that is very mountainous. 1. I live in a place that gets a lot of snow. It gets very cold. 2. I live next to a very big forest. 3. I live in a prairie where the grass grows in every direction.
Okay. So I live in a place where there is sand everywhere, and it is called a desert. So good. I live in a place where there is sand everywhere. It's called a desert. Good. You picked a picture that's dry and there's cactus. Okay. We'll go over here. I live in a prairie where the grass grows in every direction. So remember, prairie has grass all around, or you could have wheat or different kind of grass. Okay? And I live on top of a hill. Good. There's a picture of a house on top of a hill. It's perfect. Okay, remember that. I live next to a very big forest. You can live in a forest or you can live next to a forest. Good, good. I live deep inside the jungle. Good. So a jungle, there's lots of trees and there's lots of plants that grow very big. Okay? And there might be vines. These are vines that come down. Okay? And I live in a place that gets lots of snow. It gets very cold. Yes. So, where there's snow, it's usually cold. What about, I live in an area that is very mountainous. Now that is a different word. Here's mountains, but mountainous is spelled, I'll write it over here. Okay, see the difference? Okay, so mountains are but mountainous describes an area. This is describing an area. Okay? So it's very mountainous. I live in a place that gets a lot of sun. It is very hot. Whew. Picture of a sun. So it is very hot. Right? Mm-hmm. I live in a place with no hills because everything is flat. It's very flat. So, here's a picture. It's flat. There's just buildings, no mountains, no valleys. It's flat. Good.
Well, how did you do with that activity? Did you get most of the answers correct, or maybe all of them correct? If you did, that's very good. If you didn't get very many correct, maybe you would like to go back and do this activity again. It's okay to do that. And then when you're a little more confident with the pictures and the names that go with them, then you can go on and finish the next activity.
So, what you're going to do is you're going to write about where you live. I want you to write a sentence that says, where I live, it is very hot or cold, and I live in a forest, or I live near mountains, I live on the prairie, I live on a hill. Where I live on a hill. So my house is up on the hill. There's me. Okay? But my aunt and my uncle, they live in a valley. So that's my cousin. Cousin. They live down the valley. So you are going to write a sentence. Be quiet. I want you to write, where I live live, it is very cold. I live on a hill near the mountains. Okay, so this is what I would write. Where I live, it is very cold. I live on a hill near the mountains. So I want you to write a sentence like this, or a couple, there's two sentences here, describing where you live, or you can write about where you want to live. Okay, so you would then say, I want to live where it is, okay? Yeah. Where it is hot in the desert, okay? So you need a piece of paper and a pen, okay?
The students are writing sentences about where they live and where they want to live. Let's do that together. So I'm going to ask you to write a sentence about where you live now. That sentence could be something like this. Where I live, it is blank. And in that blank you could say maybe hot or cold or dry. Or maybe you could say rainy if it rains a lot where you are. And you could say again, I live in the forest, or I live on the prairies, or I live near the ocean. And this would tell us where you live. The first one is about the climate. What is the weather like where you live? The second one is about the geography, the kind of land around where you live. For example, if I were describing where I live in Canada, I could say, where I live, it is very hot and it is very cold sometimes. I could say, I live on the prairie. So I would say, where I live, it is very hot and it is very cold. I live on the prairie. So write a sentence about where you live now. And then write another sentence. Write the second sentence about where you want to live. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? Maybe you would say something like this. I want to live where it is hot. I want to live near the ocean. Somebody might say that. Maybe you might say, I want to live where it is cold. I want to live in the mountains. All right? So take a moment now and write one sentence about where you live now and one sentence about where you want to live. All right? Are you ready? Let's begin doing that. Please stop the video and do the activity. We're going to listen to the children read their sentences now. I want you to remember something. These are children. They are still learning English, and sometimes their sentences are not correct. So sometimes the teacher has to correct them. But let's listen to them and listen to their sentences. I hope you enjoy it.
A couple people share their sentences. Can some people share their sentence? Sasha, you want to read your sentence? Come up here and read your sentence.
I live in the flatlands. I wanted to live where is it both hot and cold.
So you want to live where it is both hot and cold.
Yes.
Good. Yes, we didn't talk about something in between hot and cold. Good job. Good job. Marta?
I want to live where it is hot. I want to live in a forest.
Good. You want to live in a forest. Good job. Very nice. Okay, Vika?
Where I live, it is very hot. I live on the hill.
Good. You live on a hill. Nice job. Come on up, Tanya.
Where I live, it is very hot. I live in a flat near the prairie. I want to live where it is hot. I want to live in a jungle.
You want to live in a jungle. Good, good. Leanna?
My house is in the forest at a little cold.
My house is in the forest where it is a little cold. Good job, good job.
Now it's your turn. The children read their sentences. I would like you to read your sentences. So have each person come to the front of the classroom and read their sentences. One sentence about where you live now and one about where you want to live. Are you ready? Let's begin doing that. Please stop the video and do the activity.
So now we've learned about all these different kinds of land. So can you tell me, first of all, what kind of land do you live in right now? You live in a hot place. And what kind of land do you live in? What did we say you think this area is? What do you think? Sasha? You live in a jungle?
No, we live in a flat land.
Aha. Or what was the other word? Where there's lots of grass? There's a prairie, right? Okay. And what about, where would I find a lion? In the jungle. And where would I find a cactus?
In Africa.
Where did I say you would find? Yes, where it's hot. And that was called a
In Africa.
desert. A desert. Okay. Good. All right. So that is the end of our lesson. I look forward to seeing you guys later.
Well, let's wrap up. What did we learn today? Well, we learned about the weather where we live. That's the climate. It might be hot, it might be cold, it might be dry, or maybe rainy. And we learned about the geography. That's what the land is like where you live. Maybe you live where there are mountains, where there are hills. Maybe it's the flatlands. Maybe you're on the prairie. Maybe it's a desert where you live. Now this is important because we always talk about the weather, and where we live has a big impact on our lives. It can be very important for us. If you live in some place like the flatlands or the prairies or the hills, it's probably easy to grow food. If you live in a desert or on the mountains, it can be very hard to grow food. But sometimes there are fun things to do. If you live in the mountains, maybe you can go skiing. Maybe you like to ski. If you live near the ocean, maybe you'd like to swim. And so these things can be fun as well. Where I live, we get to have lots of fun in the winter. We can go skiing, and there are some places where we can swim as well. These things are important because the land where we live and the weather where we live always affects the kinds of things we can do. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson, and I hope it's helped you to understand how to talk about where you live. This is English Without Limits. I'm Doug Sadler. Wherever you live, whatever the weather is like,